We should be live. We
All right.
are, yeah, we're live. Good morning.
Good morning. This is
How's your
going to
morning
be. I always want to be well prepared, and I never am. So this
going?
will be fun.
So,
Oh, that actually reminds me. I need to tag the release right now. So, okay.
um, man,
All right.
oh my God, I'm getting like a weird echo.
Oh,
I think it's I had the window open. Okay, it's all
okay.
gone.
Sorry. Technical
All
difficulty.
right. Good morning, everyone out there in internet land. We're excited to be here this morning talking to you about GPTScript and support for new models. So today's agenda is pretty quick. We realize we haven't ever done a quick overview of what GPTScript is. I mean, so we're going to do like 5 minutes just explaining it. We'll probably clip that, stick it somewhere on YouTube, and then never do it again. But we're going to spend the vast majority of today talking about how GPTScript works with other models. So up till now, we've really only supported OpenAI, and we've been talking about kind of the gap between OpenAI and other models. Today we're going to go and look at a whole bunch of different models like Local AI, Llama, Claude, Llama 70B, different things that are out there. We'll talk about Gemini, whatever you guys want to talk about, and we'll kind of show how we've added support for different models into the project. Sound like a good plan, Darren? All right, that counts.
Sorry, I muted myself, so I was typing because I was fixing one last bug before I'm tagging the release. Then.
All right, so for anybody who's new and has no idea what GPTScript is, GPTScript is a new project. We introduced it about a month ago. It's basically a scripting language built for LLMs, and it's quite interesting because it's built to take advantage of the fact that LLMs can understand natural language, and so the scripts themselves can be written in natural language. That doesn't mean that's all you can write. You can combine them with code, obviously, and other things to make them more and more deterministic. But they're surprisingly powerful when you just write in natural language. As somebody who's not a developer, I'm finding myself writing these things all the time to take care of business tasks. At the core, every GPTScript is basically a set of logic and tools. And the logic is really what you're writing into the body of the script, what you're expecting the LLM to do. And the tools are either existing tools that you're calling, tools you can find like on our tools.gptscript.ai service, or tools you're creating, or even just other GPT scripts. Any GPT script can be a tool, but it's this nesting of logic and functionality. So tools could be system tools if you're running locally. They could be browser tools. They could be things like image generation or vision or summarization or just about anything. Tools can connect to APIs or call CLIs. It's really kind of whatever you want the script to be able to do. You provide those tools, and then the logic determines when to call them. And that, up till now, we've only been supporting OpenAI, but with the latest release, you'll be able to run it against pretty much any LLM or lots of different LLMs. So what does a GPT script look like? It's this is one right here. It's usually very simple. It's a beginning. You start with an explanation of the tools that your service is going to use. You can call out local tools like sys tools. You can create tools. You see I have a recipe generator tool that's actually highlighted down below, or you can pull tools from any URL. So this is using an AI vision tool, because in this little script we're asking the LLM to take a look at a picture, figure out it's a picture of food, figure out what foods are in that picture, write those to a simple file, in this case an ingredients file called ingredients markdown. Then based on that file that was written locally, suggest a recipe that I can cook that's quick based on those files. And it's pretty cool. You can upload a picture, send it an input, and you'll get an output. We have a little front end on this one, so you can upload a picture and you can get an output. In this case, we had lots of eggs and veggies and cheese, and they decided to suggest a summer frittata. So it's pretty cool. Anything you can kind of imagine can be done. We've got lots of examples in the GPTScript GitHub repo. There's a whole bunch on the acorn.io tutorials. We're putting them up kind of every day or two. We just had one of how to go find get notified every time a new Forerunner was posted to Craigslist in Arizona. So you can see all sorts of examples of how you can do this, how you can monitor web pages, use things like browsers, use internet search, use API calls to create, just about anything. And the value is really in how using that LLM to replace what would otherwise be a lot of coding. So that's GPTScript in about 4 minutes. Now, let's get into the new stuff. We want to talk about models. So up until now, the initial release, Darren, GPTScript was an OpenAI driven thing. OpenAI had far and away the best function calling when we tested it. And, we started with just that. But I know from the beginning, people have been asking for support from different models. Do you want to talk a little bit about what that looks like now?
Yep. And I'm all ready. I just tagged the release. So it's pushing out. So whatever I'm showing should be in a release as CI completes. So let me show you. So Shannon had nice slides. You can kind of see where I am. This is the equivalent of my slides. So we will kind of go through and talk about a couple different things, and then I'll show this. This should pretty much all be working. We'll see how it's going. Let me mute my Slack. Okay. So, So I want to talk about, when GPTScript, what really got me excited about AI was actually function calling. And GPTScript was fundamentally built on function calling, because it was this cool thing where it's I can get it to do things. I send it a prompt and it tells me to call this function, which then leads to another action. And so suddenly I can start automating stuff. And that's my background. I love automation. So I got really excited about function calling. So then people are like, well, can GPTScript work on any model? Well, not all models support function calling. So then we started looking at all the different models and what it means to support all the different ones. But then we actually figured out that not all AI use cases need functions. And so there's cool things you can do with functions, and we show a lot of them. But there's a lot of cool things you can do without functions. And so basically there's as we've kind of gotten into looking at supporting different models, it's kind of opened my eyes to all the other use cases that exist for AI that I wasn't initially looking at, because I just got really kind of hyper focused on functions. So I want to kind of talk about what it means. GPTScript now, with this release, basically supports any model. Any LLM, we'll talk about kind of the different models, but it pretty much can support any model. But what that means is kind of nuanced, because not all models are created equal, and there's really no portability between models. So what I mean by that is, if you write a prompt and you test it on one model, like I tested on GPT-4, there is zero guarantee. In fact, there's less than a guarantee. It pretty much will not behave the same way on a different model. So when you write a prompt, it's going to behave differently for whatever model that you're using. So when you write prompts, it's very much tied to that specific model. It's really only tested and known to work against that one model. And it's even slightly worse than that, of the model plus the provider. And what I mean by that is let's say you go with a standard one, Llama 70B, or even Mistral large, even kind of has this behavior to a certain degree. Is if I get Llama 70B that's hosted by Azure, or I'm running Llama 70B that's locally or something, if you have enough memory to run that, the platform you're running it on, it might behave slightly different. The way that the serving infrastructure is, it just might, it's there's all these fine little details of running a model, different parameters and quantization and all this crazy stuff, that it might be slightly different. So the portability is really tied between these two things. And you'll see that's reflected in the design of how we're doing tool development, because you have to realize if you write a piece of code, it's tied to that model and that provider. And so the prompts, when I show you how this actually works, you'll see it's basically tied to it. So between different models, it's kind of what's the difference between them. It's one is just how smart are they? They might get better or worse answers. It's extremely subjective. It all depends on your use case. If was that answer good or bad or whatever. Another is do they support functions? So this is a pretty fundamental thing to GPTScript. the proprietary big models support functions pretty well. Like nothing compares to GPT-4. It's amazing. It works really well. But the other ones like Claude 3 and Gemini, they do a pretty good job. Mistral Large struggles quite a bit. But the other like Gemini and Claude 3 are pretty solid. And then the last thing is like the model, are we talking about just like an LLM, which is pretty much just chat, or is it like multimedia? Are we doing doing image and video? So I'll say, like, I'll be honest right now, kind of like the multimedia support here in GPTScript, this is still more emerging. So we can do it in different ways, and I'll show you how we do it. But that we're gonna, like, I haven't spent enough time kind of figuring out what the standard interface for multimedia kind of stuff is, whatever. Okay, so that's like the high level, trying to level set on like what it means, because like I'm making the claim saying that GPTScript supports basically any model, but like what does that really mean? It's like that doesn't mean like your script you run, it's just going to suddenly work on any model. It won't. So it's, you pick a model, its capabilities, and you write a script to it. And GPTScript is going to give you like really the simplest, easiest interface to interacting with that model. Like it's so simple. Okay, so let me see. So next I'm going to go through like, okay, how we actually did this. Okay, so any Shannon questions or anything, or should I just keep going?
Okay. Keep going. We got questions, but just keep going.
Yeah. Okay. So there's 3 approaches on how we do this. Is GPTScript was fundamentally written against OpenAI, but it works out that like OpenAI API is kind of becoming like the de facto standard, like with the exception of the big proprietary guys like Gemini, Google and Anthropic. Besides like those 2 big models, they have like their own custom APIs, or the cloud providers kind of do some weird things. But like beyond those, like those big ones, like everything else, the whole huge open source and everything else that's going on in AI, it's all converging to just supporting the OpenAI API, which makes it super easy. So the first thing is, if you have an OpenAI compatible API, we basically just drop in work. Okay, so let's talk about how this actually works. So I'm going to use so an easy one right now. Let's see, who should we pick? Mistral's a decent one. Okay, so we'll go with Mistral. So Mistral, like you can get Mistral. This is kind of funny. Like, so you can, this kind of illustrates the difference between providers. You can get Mistral from Azure, or you can get it directly from Mistral on the platform. The platform is like complies completely well enough with the OpenAI API, whereas the Azure has weird issues. So here I'm going to be using Mistral directly from them. But if I wanted to use Mistral on Azure, I have to do a different approach. Like, and that's this next approach called a shim, and I can show that when we get there. Okay, so going back, so how do you use a different model? So like everything we've done in GPTScript so far, like this is like kind of like the simplest prompt here. How do I if I run this, it's going to go against OpenAI. It tells me I was created by OpenAI. And my knowledge is whatever. Okay, so there's always been this parameter here where I could say like I want GPT 3.5 turbo. Okay, like that one's just faster and cheaper, right? So if I run this one, I should get slightly different response. What the heck? I have no idea what replica is. I don't even know if that's true. But anyways, but it was like slightly faster. So like we've always had that, but the thing is like this is like tied to OpenAI. So what we've added now is we have this syntax, which, if there's more savvy GPTScript users, you might recognize this is basically the same. Like when we reference tools, you can reference a tool, something like GPTScript AI. Sorry, I just wanted to bring up, just show you guys this, whatever. It's just easier if I. So if I was to reference, you can say something like this. But there's this advanced syntax that I'm not a super big fan of because it's kind of internal details, but you can actually reference a tool directly inside of there if there's a subtool you want to grab in there. Anyway, so it's kind of the exact same syntax. So, and you'll see why this makes a little more sense when we get into the shims. But so here you can say, okay, I want to use Mistral large lattice from that API. Like it's just standard. Like it's a standard API. So I don't have to write a shim or anything. They support the OpenAI API. It just works out of the box. It's great. So now if I run this, oops, we'll go to the other one. GPTScript Mistral. So if I run this, oh yeah, this was cached. It wouldn't normally run that fast. Cache files. Okay. Yeah. So now it says, okay, I'm a model Mistral. Okay. So now, so the thing is, so you can see like you put the model name in there. So like when I like commit this tool to source or whatever, and somebody else runs this, like they can be running it. Well, then it's going to try to hit Mistral, right? So it's like we're attaching the prompt to the specific model because they're not portable. Like so it's coupled together. Like this is by design or whatever, just the state of the industry or whatever. So they're coupled together. One thing that I glossed over was like obviously you need an API key. Like, how do we do? So we just have a very simple thing where it's like API like this. We're just looking for, it's this syntax here, GPTScript provider, and then the host name of the service, in kind of an environment variable syntax, and then API key. So we just looked that up because the APIs are, for OpenAI, it's very simple. There's token, bearer token, it's an API key. So we just need to look that up and get it. So that's how we grab that. So if I didn't have that set, it will just fail. It'll just say like unauthorized and whatever. Okay, so that's kind of like the simplest one. So like the cool thing is like I can do things. Oh, let me show you this. So, and to make things easy, like if you know what your provider is, in GPTScript, you can say GPTScript list models. We've had this before, like list models. Like that just lists all the OpenAI ones. But now I can put a provider name, and then this is going to tell me what are the models that are available. So I can use that one. Okay. So unfortunately not all, like the thing that sucks that I've been poking around with is like not everyone supports the list models API, which sucks. Like hopefully more people will because it's super nice to be able to know what models are available. Otherwise, you have to go to documentation and stuff. Like if I have time to demo Azure, I'll show you like they don't support list models. Well, it depends. They have different incarnations of the API. So like this approach. So the cool thing is like one of the things everyone's been asking is like I want local models. Okay, well, so like this approach will work with. Let's see. I've got local AI running here, so I'll do this. List models, HTTP. Yeah, okay, so this is local AI. So don't be fooled. Local AI, like GPT-4 is not really GPT-4. It's GPT-4, like they do that so it's like perfectly compatible with the API, but under the hood, it's like a Hermes or whatever. It's some other model. So anyway, so I can do that, and then if I run this script, which is now poorly named Mistral, so probably mentioned, anyway, so that's running against local AI, okay, but so as I was saying before, it's like it all depends on like the capabilities of the model. So this local AI model can do function calling. So let me try a simple, I'll show you scripts, example, Bob. Bob is kind of like a very simple, like hello world of function calling, okay? So if I wanted to do this, okay, so that I have to basically for each one, this is kind of tedious. I'm wondering if like maybe there's a better, but like for each one, I have to put like what's the model it's running against. Like, because this is a tool and this is a tool, and they have different models. So yeah, so you can use this in the latest one. Let me just double check that the release actually went out. You can see. So this should be in 0.30, and like if you do brew upgrade GPTScript AI tap GPTScript. Oh no, I think I can just say GPTScript. Let's see if it's actually in brew yet. And then it takes a while. It pushes out to the WinGAD and Scoop and all that crap or whatever. Yeah. So it should be there. So you should be able to run whatever I'm doing. Okay. So if I'm doing this, so the cool thing is, so like I was saying, like on one hand, it's kind of tedious. I got to put model everywhere if I'm using custom models. But it's also really cool because you can write completely like multimodal things, right? So it's like, well, here, if I didn't put that, like that prompt would run against OpenAI. But this prompt up here would run against local AI. Let's see if this actually works. Let's see if I made any. So yeah. So that called question. So you'll see like, I'll show you I can show you some different models or whatever, but like function calling is spotty. How well it works, you have to fool around with it. So, but so I can do a completely like multimodal thing here. So, okay. So let's see where we are here let me show you. There was one other thing I wanted to point out was there is a way like, so you put the model name in like the script of what model you want to use. You can change the default model. Like if something doesn't specify the model, you can do the default model. So I can change the default model like this. The downside of this is like you suddenly now change, like for all the tools that were previously written against what was assumed to be OpenAI GPT-4 are now suddenly going to run against this other model. So it's like, who knows what's going to happen. So it's like, it's kind of a dangerous thing. And we warn, like if you set that, let me see what happens. I think, will it warn? Yeah, it warns whenever you set it. It's like changing this field, you never know, right? But the nice thing is like I can kind of fool around with some of the demos. I can show you these things. So it's like for like this local AI one, if I do like GPTScript default model and I say GPT-4 from, this is local AI, and I run like, let's say like this factorial example, you'll see most likely yeah. A lot of times this is what happens. Like the model's not really quite smart enough. It gets stuck in a loop, right? But it still wasn't super dumb. It at least did a couple, so it's like I'll show you some other ways that like this can possibly fail. Like this SQLite download example, like this should probably, wait, let me see if this will do it all. Yeah, so like this one, so you can see like this one was pretty cool. Like it went like, oh, it downloaded the right thing and then it executed the command. That's cool. And then when it got to this point, at this point, the way this prompt is written, it's assuming that the LLM has good knowledge of SQLite. Like you are an expert at SQLite. This model that I'm using is not an expert at SQLite, and it created a command that it just hallucinated. So like when I run this one against GPT-4, like OpenAI, works great. Against here, it doesn't. But like, yeah, so you can see like, this is why like the prompts, you really have to test them against the LLMs and the capabilities of the LLMs. Okay, so that was a whole crap ton of stuff. So what I've shown you so far is basically the OpenAI compatible. So for the open source world, this is the coolest thing. This is the coolest thing because everyone, so like this works against like Olama, Local AI, LM Studio, like all the freaking tools out there you can name. It will work against all of them. So this is really, really cool. Like I've got, let's see, Olama here. I should be able to do, let's see, we'll do something here like this, whatever. Like this model, fee is 454v1. I think that's what it is. Hold on, let me see. Oh wait, they don't support listing. Write some Python code to we'll do this like write bubble sort in Python. Let's see if this works, because this is like this model I think is like a super fast coding model. We'll see if it works. I should have named this script Mistral. We've just been using it over and over again. But let's see. Yeah. So like that, like so the cool thing is like, but you realize like this model here is completely not capable of function calling. But the cool thing is like what I can do is it's like, okay, this is a coder. Let's see, we can just try this. Args instructions, the program to write. I have no idea if this is gonna work because I've never really fooled around with fee before. Write some Python code to follow, and we'll just say instructions. I don't know if it's going to do this right, but we'll see. And then we can do here, we can write a prompt and say, we'll say the tools that it has available to it is the coder, and then we'll do this, like, you know, write a bubble, tell the coder to write bubble sort. Okay. So we'll see if this works. So the idea here is like this one is actually doing GPT-4, which supports function calling. This doesn't support function calling, but they're doing like the end task. Like they're the, you know, the ground level engineer or whatever. Okay, so let's see if this works. Yeah. Okay. So like, yeah, and then it's summarizing results or whatever. But so you can see like this, it's really cool. It's like we can do this fully multimodal. So it's like we can.
I mean, did you used OpenAI initially for the broad set of function, and then had the tool work against a different model in one?
Yeah. Yeah. So I mean, this is like not a very like I'm not creative and a good example, but like I can do something here where it's like, you know. Step one, something, you know, step two, blah, 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 and then get the output of that and tell the coder to write this, right? So I use a more intelligent model to like ascertain some random crap. And then like, once I have that like random crap, then I say, write some code to do that. And then that one, you know, so I can combine the two different models together.
So the chaining, when you go chaining models, you're basically you're basically creating one tool, and then that tool would have a model that it's tied to, and then you're invoking that tool from another script that then you wouldn't even need to pass much through. You just have sort of, it would go call that other GPT script basically.
Yeah. So like that's cool. Like that's like GPTScript is just like super lightweight like orchestration engine. I guess it's like call this thing, get the output, call the next thing, and so it's just the way things are chained together is with function calling. Instead of
theoretically, like, I mean, you know, at some point, if I have a tool that all it does is build front ends, and I have another tool that is a data tool, and I have another tool that's more of a general purpose knowledge tool, I'm layering these tools in workflows that allow me to, you know, make a whole bunch of changes, publish a new thing, then, you know, call my WordPress tool to update the WordPress site and post the blog that I just went through, developed, wrote, edited, and then actually published.
Yeah, it's like it's super cool because like you can make the tools like as complex or as simple as you need. You can optimize it, you know, because like we all kind of know GPT-4 is like slow and expensive. It's one of the most, or might be the most expensive model to run. And so it's like once if I have a specific task, it's like I don't need the power of GPT-4. Like I can break that one little function out into a simpler task and then find a model that works really well for it. That's more optimized for that task. That's much cheaper. So,
and again, when you think about what so many people I'm talking to about GPTScript are using it for, they're basically using it as the back end of services on websites or something. In that case, you know, you kind of build it once, get it right. optimized for cost, optimized for performance, optimized for accuracy, and then that might have multiple models and multiple tools working as almost like microservices within this new LLM app.
Yeah, and it's like what we're doing with GPTScript is we're doing this cool function calling, chaining, piecing, but like that's not actually the current state of. Well, I mean, it's like LangChain does it today, but it's like we're doing it purely with AI, and like that's really cool. And like that's what I get excited about. But like the more kind of traditional, if you want to say anything's traditional, is like stitch things together with code. So it's just like prompt and prompt and prompt, and you stitch it together with code. So it's like, if you're going to kind of like that lowest level, it's like, well, this is just a prompt. So it's like, I've written this tool. I can now publish this tool on GitHub. Like 2 weeks ago, we showed how we're doing the publishing of tools and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I can now publish it on GitHub, and then I can just easily consume it anywhere. So it's like, it's just a canned prompt, but that prompt is also tied to a model. But like the super cool thing is like tying it to a model this way, like this ends up being like, surprisingly more difficult than you would think to like, all this little guts or whatever. It's like, so it's like the fact that we've just figured out the model accessibility, not even portability, like there's no portability, but we just make it easy to pick anyone. This ends up being so simple. And then like we have Python and Node.js bindings. We kind of have Go bindings. But anyway, so it's like all this is just super easy to plug in. So it's like when I was preparing this, for this presentation or whatever, and I was putting things together, like it actually dawned on me like how cool this actually is. Like, because I started fooling around and I'm like, oh, let me try this one, because it's like, for example, GPTScript list models. This is a provider that I've been using because they do a lot with function stuff. So API Fireworks. This is one annoyance, having to know the inference v1. Okay, right. So it's like what I realized, I'm like, oh, cool. Like these guys, they're super fast. I think they're relatively cheap. Now that I think about it, I don't even know if I'm paying them. Maybe they're free right now. But it's like I was fooling around with their function v1 model, but it's like, look at all this other stuff they have. It's like, oh, if I want to try out Gemma or Llama, like. They have all these different models. And so now it's just like easily from GPTScript. I change one line, I'm using that different model. Like I never thought about it. Like it's so cool because it's like it just makes running prompts ridiculously easy. And like, that's the whole goal here is like you don't need to know Python and all this craziness. It's like, just write a prompt. You just have to understand their tool. It's not that hard. And it like makes it so easy. Okay. So.
Hey, Darren, before you go, there was one question John asked. He said, are you implementing your own function calling?
No, we're not. Like we've spent a lot of effort into that. We have engineers working on that, implementing our own function calling. Again, it's like it's tricky and there's no portability. Like, so if I implement function calling, it will work on this one specific model, but it won't necessarily work very well on other models. It's not portable on how you implement function calling on top of a model. And there's different approaches. There's fine tuning plus a little bit of prompt engineering, and it's kind of a nasty, dirty thing. And so we are working on it because like we're trying to see if like one thing is like, what if the default model of GPTScript was actually like just like a lightweight, fast, like local model or whatever. Like that would be awesome. We're not quite there yet. So we are like putting a lot of effort in it, but like right now it's like we're just basically pushing out to the community. Everyone's working on this. Everyone like function calling, everyone realizes the power of it. And all the big models have it. The smaller models are kind of doing it, but the smaller models by default or like by definition are not as smart. But the smaller models are getting smarter. So it's like everything's just changing so fast.
Give it 2 weeks. One of the things to try and help us with this though is we started working on a benchmark internally, just like to look at so like what do when we say OpenAI GPT-4 is so much better at function callings than even Gemini, what do we mean? How do we prove that? So we're going to publish a benchmark soon, I think.
Yeah, because like one of the things is like there's quite a few function calling benchmarks, but like the problem we ran into is like, okay, they would do function like this model passes or does great on this function calling. Like they'll say like we do function calling better than GPT 3.5 or even 4. And we would try the model and it doesn't work. And we're like, okay, there's some mismatch between like what this benchmark is testing and what we are doing and it's not working very well. So we started developing our own benchmark that reflects, it's from like, well, we tried to run GPTScript and it failed. Okay, let me turn that into like a benchmark of like why we think it failed and put a test case for that. So we've been putting that together so that we can better evaluate models of just understanding the capabilities. Yeah. Okay. So again, as I said, like the coolest thing is like the API integration that opens up like this huge world. Okay. Then we have the shim. Okay. So this is where it gets like nasty and dirty, is the big models are not OpenAI compatible. Unless obviously you're using like OpenAI with Azure, and then Azure does have OpenAI somewhat compatible interfaces, but they don't fully work. So what we've done is we already have a tool packaging framework, like we can package tools. So what you can do now is basically write a shim, which will translate OpenAI API that we expect. So it's like you don't need to support the entire API. It's kind of like the subset of whatever we care about. We only care about two things: chat completion and list models. List models is optional; it's not required, but it's, you know, you're mean to your users if you don't have it. So you just have to implement kind of the subset of what we need to get working. And then so we will basically like dynamically download and run that. So let me I'll pick one of the more so the first example I'll do for this will be Claude. I'm just going to call this demo GPT, so I stop using such a bad name. Oh, hold on, let me copy. Oh yeah, I already have one here. Let's call it GPT. Okay. All right. So this one is actually Claude running on AWS. Okay. So right now, let me show you. We've written a series of these shims for the ones you can look for. They end in -provider. So we have one for Anthropic, Google, and Azure. The Azure one is really funky because, like, Azure, if you're using their, like we have to put more work into Azure. Like, it's a kind of a messy situation because Azure was a very early adopter of OpenAI. They kind of did things one way, and then it seems to be they're doing things slightly different. So there's kind of two approaches within Azure right now. And so that one's kind of messy. But we have a Google. This is where you can get access to Gemini from that. And then we have Anthropic. So I'm going to demo the Anthropic one. But so if you look at this, this is kind of nasty. Like, because you're taking like Anthropic's API and you're trying to map it to OpenAI. Like, there's other projects that do this out there. What was I can't remember. It's like I don't know. I can't remember. There's a very popular Python one I can't remember that abstracts all these. We kind of ran into like more trouble than it was worth trying to leverage the existing ones because like maybe we can converge and end up using those projects, but it was kind of easier to just one-off write these simple things. So this is basically translating Anthropic's API to to what we have run. So it's like, this is kind of nasty code or whatnot, but this is following like the normal tools. So all you do, this stuff is technically optional, but it's just helpful. Like, this is the name of the model, and this is the description of this thing, and we have this parameter in here for model provider true. That's just metadata because we're going to end up indexing the model providers on the toolbox, like on this website. So you'll be able to find those. Okay, so the way you reference this is just the same way you would reference any tool, which is like just start with GitHub and whatever. So I can say GPTScript list models like this. Okay, and so this model under the hood, so you see it listed the models. This is kind of, I wonder if I can silence that quiet.
Darren, anything you can do to make the screen text a little bit bigger?
Oh, really?
I can get our faces out of there. That will help. Somebody asked. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Sorry about that.
Hopefully that's better.
Yeah, hopefully that's better. Yeah, you don't need to see our faces. Okay, so so I could say list providers or list that. So like the Anthropic provider. So if you go, and we're working on kind of like the documentation. Like, so the most annoying thing is like, it's pretty easy once you know the provider, like the shim name, you can use it. The authentication portion is kind of the annoying part about it. And so it's in the documentation of the providers right now, where basically you need to set like the Anthropic key. Or if you're doing AWS, like I'll actually show this running on AWS, it works either way. If you're doing AWS, then you have to do AWS rigmarole to like get the, it's like AWS SSO login. I'll see if it even works for like, so here I can see like I have the ones that start with Anthropic dot. These are the AWS ones, and these are the ones that just go directly to Anthropic, like their provider. So I can do what do I have here? So this one is Claude 3 from there. So if I run this now, GPTScript demo, you see, so basically we basically grab the provider. I've already cached, this is cached, so it already went quickly, but normally we'd like do a git clone and set it up and stuff. And so it has the provider available. Well, if I say cache, this just doesn't cache the prompts, not the underline. But yeah, so like that's hitting Anthropic on AWS. So it's kind of cool from like a user perspective. It's like I set an environment variable that's not much different from OpenAI, and I just have to know like what's the provider name instead of a URL. And then it just kind of magically works. So like it's really cool from a user perspective. From an implementation perspective, like writing these things and stuff, it sucks. But I mean, it's not the worst thing in the world. Yeah, so it's like if it's so basically any chat model that has an API, we can support through this shim approach, and so we have this. So we've already done. So I've kind of said like the state of this is like if I go back to the providers here, Anthropic works great. Google works pretty darn good. I have the least experience using Google because I'm a pretty big fan of Claude 3. Like I just haven't had enough time to like put it a lot through its paces, but it seems to be pretty darn good. They do support function calling, so you can do some interesting things. It's still not as good as GPT-4, I don't think. Like for function calling, just function calling, it's definitely not as good as GPT-4. But in general, like the model seems to be really good. So I've fooled with Anthropic the most. Google should also be pretty good. I just don't use Gemini much. Azure is somewhat crazy, and you'll notice we don't have AWS Bedrock. That one we just ran into some technical difficulties. So even though you can use Claude through Anthropic, like it's that's kind of this subtlety of the way Anthropic's client themselves, they just have a wrapper for Bedrock. So like they take care of all the nasty AWS issue, like calling their APIs and stuff. So we don't have direct Bedrock integration. Like we'll figure that out.
I think this is where people can't see it, Darren. You got to kind of blow this.
This. Oh yeah. Well,
terminal. John Clare.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Okay. Yeah. Sorry.
When you get into the code, it's totally tiny.
Yeah. I mean, I don't expect anyone to understand. Like this is, it's just a bunch of Python. It's all nasty. But yeah, so this one, it's the Anthropic, like this is abstracting away Bedrock, but like we're trying to figure out how to just do native Bedrock support. But I ran into some subtle issues. So we're still working on that. Okay. So those are the different, so there's one last thing, and this is kind of like, so these are kind of like first class, awesome, great experience. And as I was saying before, is like, there's this uncharted realm for GPTScript where we're still figuring out multimedia. It's, not any issues. It's just, we can only accomplish so much so quickly. So I haven't really spent a lot of time on trying to figure out what's a good abstraction and stuff for multimedia. So for multimedia, this is more of like, you can just run a model as a tool. But this approach here opens up a bunch of random weird things that you could do with AI that are not necessarily like first class features in GPTScript. So for example, what I'll demo here is SDLX. So this is something Bill put together. Bill's one of our fabulous engineers who programs very well. Last time I said he was not a programmer, but he programs very well. So what this is doing is basically we're going to use SDLX. Like this is getting super difficult and like this is like upping your game. Like if you can package one of these, you're an amazing AI engineer or whatever. But like what this tool will do is it will actually run SDLX XDLX using PyTorch on my GPU. So this is going to actually like run this local model on this machine. Okay, so it's like if I run this script, so basically, yeah. Okay, so this is going to go through. It's creating a portrait of a rooster. So you can see here, this is actually like loading up the pipeline and crap from whatever, and it ran. It's using all the like the Hugging Face stuff and whatever under the hood, and then I should get a picture here. Yeah, so I got a nice little rooster, right? I have a super fast machine. Like the machine I'm working on is ridiculously overpowered. So like most people, this will not run like this fast. But basically this is like, so we can bring in, they're kind of like the backdoor hatch of like, well, we can actually do anything. And so there's just an example of running like, running a local model there or whatever. So here's our, this is the rooster, the fabulous rooster. It's always fun to generate images. Let's see what it thinks. Draw a portrait of Clicky, the mascot for GPTScript. Obviously, it has no idea what that is. So whatever it comes up with is going to be like complete garbage. Yeah, so I think that pretty much wraps it up. I think that's all the stuff I really wanted to cover. Hopefully, let's see. Oops. Let's see what it did.
Can we get our picture?
I don't know. Whatever.
That looks a little like Vince, doesn't it? Am I wrong? It's just the glasses.
If he got into a terrible accident,
yeah, in the eye.
Oh my gosh.
John asked a question just now. He said, "Are you doing anything with DSPY?" Do you know what that is?
No, I don't. I feel like I've seen it before. Let me Google it real quick. Oh no. I was okay. No, I'm not doing anything with this. Someone pointed it to me. I struggle. This is what happens. Like, because people point me to these frameworks all the time of like, hey, have you tried this one? Have you tried this one? The thing is like I click into an AI framework and the very first thing is like, you're overwhelmed with Python code, right? So my goal, it's like with GPTScript, I'm honestly like, we're not doing anything amazing here. It's like, we're just putting a natural language interface on the stuff that's already out there. It's like, my goal is like, I don't want to program. I don't want to program Python. I don't want to program any code. I just like, there's got to be a cool future where I'm just typing sentences and magical stuff happens. So it's like, I struggle with a lot of these existing frameworks because it's like, how do you do this? Well, you write all this Python and you do this. And it's like, that's exactly what I don't want to do. So, but I'll dig into it because like, I learn a lot from these frameworks, even though it's like, I won't necessarily like use it or whatever, but like, I mean, I learned a significant amount, like, from like, what is that? Like AutoGen or something like that's an agentic framework or whatever. And like crazy stuff. But anyways, yeah.
That's funny. Python. Okay. That's great. I think we bump back. If you haven't seen it already, find GPTScript at GPTScript.ai. It'll just take you to our GitHub. You can go to acorn.io and find a whole bunch of information about what it is and tutorials and the rest. The tools section he showed you there. Give us a like on YouTube or a star on GitHub, and follow us on Twitter. Follow Darren. Follow me. Follow GPTScript_AI. And thanks everyone for coming today. This was great. One more question. Are there any complete examples of doing advanced RAG with GPTScript? Complete example.
Yeah, so what I would recommend, so if you go to, let me just pull this up here if you want to show my screen again. because we're trying to put as many like examples and whatnot in GPTscript. There's here one for RAG. So the thing is like, this is somewhat of a letdown. I'll be perfectly honest, like, because it's like, the thing with RAG is like, RAG is really just a pattern of look up some information, use that information and attach it with my query. So it's like, it's actually a very basic pattern. And so like RAG in general, it's like, yeah, we can do it. It's a very basic pattern because GPTscript can query anything. Like we can query SQL or CSVs or hit a database or search on the internet. Like that's technically all forms of RAG. But a lot of times when people say RAG, they actually mean vector, like embeddings and all that stuff. And so we have some stuff that we've been fooling around with, but like there's, I don't know, like, well, we might do some RAG. So it's like, ironically, RAG is like the biggest use case that people care about. And it's like the one where it's like, I don't know. Like, I don't have a great answer beyond that. Like the pattern
I mean, realistically, like almost every conversation that I'm having with people right now that are actually doing this stuff and building it in are RAG things, Phil. So
yeah,
I just send out our Discord on YouTube. If you ping me or on there, Darren, whether it's connecting to data lakes or connecting to databases or creating new vector databases and uploading a bunch of content to it, that's exactly what you can do with GPTscript. So yeah, happy to go through it with you.
Yeah, it's like the thing with RAG is it's like it's like an effort. It's not a how do you do it? 1, 2, 3, done. This is RAG. It's like it's a different for everyone. So what exactly do you want to do? Yeah. So
awesome. Well, thanks everybody. This was great. We'll be back again probably next week. We probably want to talk about the support for like open API tools.
Yeah, like I wanted to demo, like we obviously didn't have enough time to demo that. We have direct open API integration coming in GPTscript. It's amazing. It's really cool. Yeah, we have a lot of stuff that's on the work in the pipeline. A lot of really cool stuff. So.
Yeah. Thanks everybody. Excited to chat more. If you have questions on Discord, find us there and we'll answer them. Take care. Thanks, Darren.